Logo, Bureau of Land Management. Title, The Pony Express, Living the Ride. Drawing of rider on galloping horse. Lone rider gallops horse across desert in moonlight.
I love riding this section of trail because it's one of the most primitive on the whole Pony Express trail system. When we ride it at night, usually the moon is so bright that you can ride along and see your shadow. Out here just with the horse and dead quiet except for the pounding of the hooves.
Galloping your horse, pitch black, stars sitting on your shoulder, and you just smelling the sagebrush and stuff, and you and your horse are just running across the desert in the middle of the night. I mean, there's nothing like it.
Rider Lynn Heller holding horse.
I would say this is about as American as it gets. I mean, there's no other country that has the Pony Express.
Map of western states showing trail route.
In the mid-19th century, the Pony Express relayed the mail on horseback nearly 2,000 miles between Missouri and California in a stunning 10 days, linking the east and west of the young United States. Although today the route is largely covered by asphalt and runs along busy roadways,
Old trail and station ruins.
much of the original trail and even ruins of Pony Express stations can still be seen, especially in the remote public lands of interior Nevada.
Group of 14 Pony Express reenactors on horseback.
Here, riders in their signature red shirts and yellow bandanas get to live firsthand a colorful chapter in American history.
Rider Travis Gerber holding horse.
We're about 15 miles from Eureka, Nevada on the Pony Express Trail in the middle of the Great Basin of Nevada, and about as far away from anywhere as you can get.
Tony Zamora holding horse, then visuals of mountains and rangeland.
In our section, from the Utah border to the middle of the state, north of Eureka, we go over 5 mountain ranges, and when we traverse that country, it's original. It's exactly the same rocks, the same canyons.
Gene Ockert holding horse.
You get that feeling that you are riding just like they did in 1860.
Rancher Arthur Johnson leads 5 horses to corrals.
When I was young, we were raised out in a rural spot of Nevada here. My folks didn't have power and we didn't have a TV. We read books about the Wild West and the Pony Express riders. Reliving the past in that real a way gives me a thrill that I just can't find words to describe.
Rancher Melody Johnson next to horse, then gallops across land.
Me, I'm just imagining that I'm Western, just riding across the desert.
Archaeologist walks past Pony Express trail sign.
Along the old trail, the land itself holds priceless clues into that earlier time.
Examines old shovel on ground, points out land features.
Archaeologist Barbie Harmon is able to give us an inside view from the ground up.
As archaeologists, we study where people have been based on the things they leave behind. Today, we know where the Pony Express came through this area based on archival information and historic maps. You can just imagine Pony Express rider coming through the path behind me, looking for the path of least resistance. And Mount Hope would have been a beacon on the landscape, a landmark to let them know that they were going the right direction. While the Pony Express only ran for 18 months, the riders would have encountered all 4 seasons and all sorts of difficult weather conditions.
Images of glaring sun, snow, and storms.
They would have struggled through the heat in the summertime, the snow in the wintertime, the rain, the cold.
Reenactors riding on roadways, dirt trails, and desert.
Today's riders face many of the same challenges, riding against the weather and the clock to get the mail delivered in 10 days, just like in the 1860s.
Riders Katie Mattern and Sam Denuzio with their horses.
It was scorching. The heat was awful. We are surviving. It's hot. We have somehow made it ahead of schedule.
Riders Andy Boyer and Tess Opferman.
You're moving.
Adjust leather saddlebags on horse.
Yeah.
Each rider relays the mail bag, called by the Spanish name mochila, from 3 to 10 miles, depending on the condition of horse and rider.
With the 1,300 letters, it weighs 45 to 50 pounds. You can see signatures on here.
Rider signs name on leather saddlebag, gallops off.
Every rider, when that mail comes into you, you sign your name, you mount the horse, and you're gone. You've got to maintain 7 to 8 miles an hour minimum.
Rider Aiden Montero by Corral.
Joining the Pony Express gives you the chance to ride horses and feel like you're in the older days.
Riders on frisky horses.
You get to wear cowboy hats, you get to do all that fun stuff, wear boots, and ride out on the trails in the middle of nowhere.
Shots of empty land.
The wide-open basin and range country might well have felt empty to the lone rider, but Native peoples had called this land home for untold generations.
Northern Paiute Donna Cassette stands on remote hillside, points out land features.
I am Northern Paiute.
Her family elders included Birdie Dave, who sang traditional Paiute music and played the drum.
Drawing of Captain Truckee.
My family has a very notable relative. One of my grandfathers, his name is Captain Truckee. He is 8 generations back.
In the 1860s, my ancestors would have seen a new phenomenon of the Pony Express rider and their stations that were being constructed and built along those Paiute or Native American trails that led to and from water, fresh, palatable, drinkable water, a resource that in this part of the Great Basin was vital for life. As the Pony Express came into being in the 1860s, they would have had driven along the southern border of the Toitacutta and also the Carson Lake area. And they would have continued on through this valley, up and over the mountain range, and continued on to where they would meet the Carson River as we know it today in the Fort Churchill area.
Archival photographs of indigenous woven houses, images of land features.
The Pony Express crossed the traditional homelands of different indigenous groups in the land that eventually became Nevada.
Northern Paiute Donna Cassette points out land features.
North of this location is the end of the Humboldt River, and that's where the Sidica, the Tule eaters, and Kuptikutta, which is the ground squirrel eaters, their territory is located. And a little bit further on would be Pyramid Lake, Kuyuitikutta, the Kuyui eaters. It's an old ancient fish. And if you go a little on the other side of that snow-capped is the Washoe, continuing on up into the Sierra Nevada and the Lake Tahoe area. And further to the south, Mount Grant, representing the Agaitikutta, the trout eaters, at the end of the Walker River Range. If you look further east, that is where the Shoshone's territory is.
Northern Paiute Donna Cassette shows native exhibits at Churchill County Museum.
It's pretty interesting for non-natives or pioneers as they were coming through this territory to see some of our basketry, some of the willow works that we actually had with our water. Of course, water is very important to us. And the different types of technology that we had. We have traditional foods in our basketry. These are winnowing trays that we had. And we do still use them today, along with the Tule clothing and the sagebrush clothing that you see behind me. And that would have been traditional wear along with buckskin and leathers that we have.
Speaker standing on open hillside.
There was changing happening all around us, but we were probably one of the last ones within the Great Basin to maintain that traditional way of life. Probably one of the longest amongst a lot of our people in North America.
Archaeologist Barbie Harmon on trailside.
The Pony Express was a risky endeavor. The stations were attacked. Sometimes horses weren't available. Sometimes food wasn't available. There was really no guarantee, but each rider was likely hoping to find sustenance and rest and some kind of security as he approached a station.
Crumbling rock wall ruins of Pony Express stations.
Several original Pony Express stations still stand along the trail, and thanks to archaeological excavations, we have an idea of what the riders would have encountered.
Barbie Harmon walks past museum shelves.
We've come to the University of Nevada, Reno, and we're here behind the scenes at the Anthropology Museum.
Artifacts on table.
We're going to talk to Dr. Carolyn White about archaeological materials that were collected during excavations.
All of these materials were excavated in the 1970s by Dr. Don Hardesty, and he produced this volume, which tells us about everything that was excavated there.
The Pony Express in Central Nevada, archaeological and documentary perspectives, photographs of excavations.
With his team out in the field, living in tents, and you can see that they've laid out their excavation units. They're screening the soil. They're excavating carefully in layers here alongside the walls of the Pony Express station at Cold Spring. carefully taking down the soil layer by layer and recovering things from within the floors.
Interview with Don Hardesty, archaeologist.
Well, an artifact can have a lot of different meanings to an archaeologist. Real artifacts can transport individuals more readily into the past than any other form. And finding, as one person put it years ago, a piece of the true cross, it transports you back in time in a way that no other source of information can do.
What we have in front of us here is material that was recovered from Sand Springs and Cold Springs Pony Express stations.
Dr. Carolyn White, archaeologist.
We think about the Pony Express kind of moving through the landscape, but in fact, these riders had to stop and rest and eat. So we have a lot of animal bones that were found on both of the sites. Things ranging from cow to pig, goat, as well as some wild animals. So this is the very top of a bottle, a green bottle, that could have held wine, probably. This was something that was not allowed by the company, but we have documentary evidence of Pony Express riders kind of falling off their horses because they were intoxicated. And the archaeological record also shows us that there was alcohol being consumed at these sites, including one kind of gin that I think is quite appropriate, London Jockey Clubhouse gin.
Old drawing, London Jockey Clubhouse gin, metal models on table.
Let's take a look at these models that were made by a student. This is Sand Springs with the doorways and walls. These were some of the rooms that were later reinforced after there had been conflict at one of these sites.
Old magazine ads of Pony Express riders.
We tend to think about the Pony Express as being this romantic period of American history, but it really involves the ugliness of the frontier as well. We have a lot of evidence of weaponry and steps taken to protect the sites from the Paiute.
Old ad for cartridges, shot pieces in hand.
And here we have small pieces of shot that would have been loaded into weapons. And we have some of these found in places in Sand Springs site alongside projectile points that indicate that these might be representative of conflicts between the Paiutes and the Pony Express.
Old drawing of rider firing pistol, Northern Paiute Donicassette.
In the desert, you have to find the clean, fresh water within the area as well. And those resources were oftentimes fought over because of occupation.
Pony Express rewriter Arthur Johnson shows handgun.
When the Pony Express began, they carried both a handgun, a revolver like this, and a rifle. So they had one of these cylinders already loaded and ready in addition to the one that was in the gun, so that they had the 6 shots that were here, and then they had 6 more, a total of 12 rounds that they carried with them on their ride.
Visuals of Desatoya Range, Sand Mountain, and ruins of old Pony Express stations.
In the Desatoya, there's a place called Otogo Guana, which means to be lifted up. And this is close to an area for the Pony Express called Cold Springs. Sand Mountain, it's called Quasi, and it's known to our people as where the snake lives, and you can see the ridge of the snake in the formation of the sand dune there. The Pony Express had a station called Sand Springs.
Donicassette, Northern Paiute on high desert hillside.
These places would have been fought over. My people would have been displaced from these locations. There was a lot of conflict for natural resources throughout all of our territories, both Paiute, Shoshone, and Washoe, and beyond. And the Pony Express was a little short part of that story being told of ours.
Old drawings of frontier towns, telegraph system.
Age-old use of the land was giving way rapidly to the pressing needs of the settlers, who demanded faster cross-country communication. After 18 months of intense activity, the Pony Express came to an abrupt end when the cutting-edge telegraph system finally linked west and east in October of 1861.
Arthur Johnson on Playa.
Here is the remnants of the old telegraph poles. It looks like there's actually 2 of them here in this location. Probably the first one fell over or got rotted off, and they put in a second one next to it. And they went across this salt flat over to the Pony Express station, which is just to the south of Sand Mountain. I think it's a pretty interesting piece of history to be able to come out here and see.
Statues of Pony Express riders, reenactor giving public talk.
Although the Pony Express no longer filled a practical need, its colorful history took on a life of its own, drawing riders of all ages and walks of life to keep the legend alive.
Volunteers gather around picnic tables, re-riders sworn in.
I will, no circumstances, use profane language, that I will drink no intoxicating liquors,
Arthur Johnson at Needy.
As of right now, I have myself and my wife, and Sam says she's going to ride there. I have my fingers crossed that I'll get more people.
Re-rider Christina Brennan with horse.
And it is so much fun to be doing this with your partner. Got a great partner here, and we're gonna rock this.
Re-riders Arthur Johnson and Rondell talking to little girl.
This is a real Pony Express horse. You just run a long way.
Carrying the mail.
Little girl pats horse's neck.
I think it would be really fun to be a Pony Express rider.
Re-rider Jim Phelan with horse.
Believe me, when you're out in the middle of the desert, you know, we're out by Sand Mountain or something, and the sun's just coming up and you get on your horse and you take off down the trail, and there's nothing in front of you except open desert. I don't know what else to say of what that really means and what it feels like right here.
An archaeologist walks over railroad ties, mountain and desert scenes.
This was a very important site in American history, but you can barely see it now. And that's true for a lot of archaeological sites. We don't really know it's there until we look carefully. So you can travel throughout the West and not really know what you're seeing, but there is evidence of the past. You just have to slow down and take a close look to see what's there.
Our public lands hold our shared heritage. Vandalism, graffiti, and removing artifacts are prohibited by state and federal laws. Join us on the trail. Contact nationalponyexpress.org or email nationalponyexpress@gmail.com. This video presented in coordination with the Bureau of Land Management, the National Trails Office, and Couts Environmental Consultants, with special thanks to the University of Nevada, Reno, Anthropology Department, and At One Media Services, to the Paiute, Shoshone, and Washoe peoples of Nevada, and to all the Pony Express riders and volunteers, made possible by funding from McEwen Mining, Inc.